Good morning, Magic TV. Uh, Doing something a little different today. I have taken over the stream, and we're going to be interviewing Rob today. I am your host, Wade Long, and today we're going to be discussing the Tarot 78 Spells for 78 Days by Rob Rubin, my esteemed co-host. So let's get him on the show, and we can get this going. All right, Rob, good morning.
Yeah, morning, Wade.
Little technical difficulties, and we're all good here. So, the tarot.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you first started doing tarot, what made you want to use it for spells?
Honestly, laziness. Laziness. Why? When you're practicing magic and you're reading tarot, sometimes you try to find the best shortcuts. Like, if you're practicing magic, you got to bring your chalice, you got to bring your pentacle, you got to bring your dagger, you got to bring your wand. But jumping in between countries, like I was, between the US and the Philippines, time and time again, kind of hard to get through customs with a dagger in your bag. And I realized, hey, wait a minute. These archetypal energies are actually in the deck. What if, right? What if? Then you realize also that a lot of these spells or a lot of these cards have a certain energy to them, and made me wonder, well, what if you could direct these energies towards an outcome? So I started experimenting with it. I started playing around with it, and lo and behold, you have the book that you're holding in your hands right now.
Kind of like the idea of having your whole Bible in a deck of cards.
Pretty much, but I wouldn't want to piss off people by saying that.
No, I think there was a song about it. But so what was the first one that you tried out of the book? What was the first one that you tried that you realized that this was going to be a success? So, without naming names of the innocent, go ahead and tell us the story of your first foray into tarot magic.
All right, it's a really good one. And believe it or not, it was the 10 of Swords, because that was the first card that I ever drew as a tarot professional. When I got my very first deck in 1997, I drew a card and I was wondering, well, what's my story going to be like as a tarot reader? And 10 Swords came out. It's like, oh, cool. What does this mean? And I looked up that it represented pain, suffering, etc. It's a different thing in there. I didn't put my personal spell with 10 Swords.
Okay.
A little bit more user-friendly, but I realized that this could be the equivalent of RPG rocket if you could take these painful energies and, thrust them towards something. So, like example, you got to break up with somebody because some dude stole your girlfriend. So you're feeling all this pain, this suffering, right? It's energy. It's energy. And you could either use that energy on yourself, or you could send that energy elsewhere so it doesn't warp you. So I figured out a way. I was like, well, I don't really like this energy. What would happen if I were to send it where I'd want it? And lo and behold, shit started happening to certain people. And I'm like, holy crap. Holy crap. It's like, if you're going to throw a grenade at me, the most logical thing to do would be to throw it back at you. Because unless it explodes, I have the opportunity to save my own skin. So yeah, it was the 10 of Swords. I mean, not really the best thing to do, but I was young, I was stupid, and it worked. But it worked. It really worked. Another one I'm going to credit, one spell there, very powerful. I'm going to credit to David Stolowitz, our guest, who told me about the energy of the hummingbird. And quite frankly, I kind of like wrapped the spell around it using the two of the lovers to bring a good partner into your life. And, using those two energies together, it actually had some success. It wasn't, now I think since I'm not as attuned with the hummingbird energy as I should be, I got some success, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted, but I will not say that it was a failure. So you'd be surprised what this thing can do.
Neat. Something that I noticed in here was that you have that, say, on each one, you've got a little caption underneath it which is
Yeah,
almost like it was a D&D spell.
exactly.
Like if you're flipping through this, like, oh, we could cast Mind Opener, or we could cast the Hummingbird, or you can cast Honorable Competitor. It's actually really good for like when you're flipping through the book and you're like, okay, I'm looking for a thing, and here's the ones that really pop right out at me. I thought that was a nice touch. There's a lot of really nice, really interesting details in this, and the artwork is phenomenal. And
AI.
you did all
I'm open
this.
about it. It was all AI. I don't want people thinking that I was claiming that I was some sort of Uber artist. But yeah, it was AI, and I accredit
Yeah, but
my dear
look at
friend.
this.
That's AI work, man. I'm sorry. I'm not
Yeah,
an
but
artist.
that's cool. You know, a lot of people talk smack about AI art, and I look at it like it's if it was just a matter of the skill of something, of someone's personal skill for doing anything with their hands, really, we wouldn't have any music beyond singing and clapping.
Very true.
So, and people say, well, but it's imitating someone else's art. Well, everything imitates something else.
Mm-hmm.
It for me, art isn't about the the technical perfection with which something was done. It's the image being conveyed. I don't care if someone draws something in manga style, or if it's like wood blocks, you know, like medieval woodcuts, or if it's Picasso style or Rembrandt style. What really gets me is what's being depicted and the message it conveys. I don't care what tools they use for it, because I mean, the tower, you got that. That's a great shot. But then you've also got that with the
That spell was
Jenga.
dedicated to one of my students named Jen. That is that spell, the Jenga spell, is actually a very potent one that I personally recommend if you want to tear down something in your life that doesn't work. It's a very Saturnian spell. It's a spell that, like, say, just relationships not working, I have to tear it down, and symbolically, you take, although everything's in the book, and it's also going to be available in the course, which I'm going to be offering starting end of January, which is going to be 40 weeks long. But you take that emotional energy. Let's say, like, you have this one thing that you are stuck in. It's a creation. It's something there that's been like, it has its own foundation. Let's say it's a bad relationship, and when you play Jenga, you play it with intention. That you pull out each piece, and you know you don't want to just yank it and knock down the tower, because you want this energy to build up of frustration, and then you're going to slowly play the game of Jenga with yourself. With each piece that you pull out, you're putting more and more of your frustration into it, so when it eventually topples, that's what gets toppled with it. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So, like,
Yeah, no, I love it.
if you hate being
I love it.
obese, you hate being obese, you will play a game of Jenga with your obesity, and each piece of Jenga you take out, you're going to do it with pure intention, because magic is all about intention. And you're going to put it over and over again. You're going to really try to play the game. And when it eventually topples, it's symbolic of all that frustration toppling down that.
Yeah, that's really something. I love this book. Um, and it is just plain beautiful. One of the other, I was talking about the little details in it.
Mhm.
I like how you sign each lesson at the
Yeah.
end, because a lot of books you kind of get going and there's no jumping off point. But with this, it's like you're like, okay, I've read today's lesson, and it's signed. It clips the whole thing into daily bites that just makes it more easy to digest.
Well, you know,
It's go
I'm
ahead.
going to give credit for this, a way of doing this book and the course. I want to give credit to Jack Grail. Okay. Jack Grail had created something with his Hail Hecate course that made learning fun, digestible, and manageable. Because occultism, man, it could become really constipated. You get what I'm saying? Really, really
Yeah.
constipated. And at times, you don't even there's not enough coffee to absorb all of that. And in Jack Grail's program, he just gave, especially the 50 rights for 50 nights, he gave you one spell, chew on it. Let's discuss it in the Facebook chat. How does it work for you? How did you modify it? What results did you get? Rinse, repeat. And you don't want to reinvent the wheel. So ultimately speaking, that's what I was kind of going for. I was like, I do want to create a book or a course that can be very friendly to the learner, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is excellent. I've never been a tarot guy myself. I've used about every oracle known to man. But I tend to prefer the sortilege ones, like where you're throwing a handful of bones or sticks or coconut shells, things that you can sit and mess with, because I'm very tactile.
Mhm.
But I have used the tarot. I can use it. I've come up with my own layouts. But honestly, this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to mess with.
Definitely. And that's just the beginning. That, like, people have asked me, like, hey, Rob, I already have the book. Do I even need the course? Of course you do. Because, like, I have Jack Grail's book. I have Marco Visconti's book. I have Lon's books. It doesn't mean that I won't take a course with them if they're offering it. See what I mean? Because there's a lot of stuff within there that you're not going to get from the book. The book is just meant kind of like to be a map, but the territory that you get out of it, that's what's going to make it amazing.
Well, yeah, the book is just notes.
Exactly.
The real meat and potatoes of any type of learning like that is going to be getting feedback from the author. Ebony Onpu, he had a whole bunch of stuff that he wrote, but that would never replace sitting in the class with him in the back of the bookstore.
True. God bless
there's no way. So you have the book to kind of refresh yourself, like, oh yeah, we covered this in class. I remember this part. This part wasn't clear and I asked about it, so now I understand this. So you got to get that kind of feedback. Just like there's no substitute. You can learn magic from a book or from a course, but if you have like a direct personal apprenticeship, where you're actually at the person's house, learning at the feet of the master and whatever, there's no replacing that.
Exactly. It's going to be infinitely better. And, people ask me, but Rob, what kind of deck do I need for this? And this is funny because a lot of people would assume that I would say, oh, use whatever deck you want. But I personally would recommend that you, if you can, get one Rider-Waite Smith deck that we call a burner deck, that this deck will be forever your spell book. See what I mean? Because there are certain archetypal energies that are connected to the cards as you see them. So, like, example, if another spell that I love there is the death spell. It's not really a spell. It's more of a guided work, because through the use of the death card in a trance meditation state, you can actually ask death to bring the spirit of an ancestor or a departed loved one. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people say, well, how come there's no candles in some of these things? Because not all magic is just about lighting candles or, burning incense and stuff. There's magic that you can do in your mind. There's magic that you can do in trance. There is magic that you can do in breath work. So I wanted to kind of give everybody a brief understanding of how the deck can operate. Some, not all, but some of the things that the deck can do, but at the same time, help them understand the practical side of each card.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's all taking place in your mind. The candles help. I've seen people replace candles with icicles. That was actually an interesting total side note. But it's really all about what's doing it for you. So, but you recommend having a separate deck for your for the spells, as opposed to the one that you usually read with.
Yes, because let's say like this: if I'm going to use that deck, use a card, let's say the Jenga spell or the Ten of Swords spell, and I'm going to kind of soak it in a lot of negative energy, that might jump out into the readings I do. You see what I mean? So it's kind of like the outfit you would wear if you and I were to go pick a fight versus the outfit you'd wear if you were going to go on a date. You get what I'm saying?
Depends on the date.
Well, yeah, definitely. And like one of the things that I really have observed is that some of the most basic practices in magic, if you're talking about, the more formalized form of magic, not just hedgecraft, like casting a circle, can be done with a tarot deck. Remember, the wand, the chalice, the sword, and the pentacle are in the deck. So
Mhm.
if you anchor the energies of your chalice to be symbolically represented in the ace of chalices, then you have yourself a pocket chalice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And
I just opened the book at random to the world.
yeah,
Yeah, Mage Hand. I love it. The art on this one is really something.
D&D is gonna kill
I
me
like
for
it.
that.
It's what?
D&D is gonna kill me for that one because Mage Hand is actually from Dungeons and Dragons, but the name, but not the spell
Yeah,
itself.
yeah. But yeah, it's that I'm loving it. So you would want to have a separate one just for. I guess yeah, that would make sense. Kind of like you don't talk into the earpiece of a telephone,
Mm-hmm.
for the same reason. So you've got one deck for making stuff go out, and the other one for receiving,
Definitely.
which makes sense.
And not only that, like if you only have one deck, then I guess you really don't get to choose. But ideally, you know what I mean? It's kind of like that the energies you're going to be using with this deck is plainly for that. Like this is the Rider White deck that I used for the creation of the course. This one, I love this deck, but it immediately shelved itself afterwards. One of the cards just vanished.
Huh.
So it's kind of like the deck telling me that I don't want to be used for anything else. You're not going to read with me anymore. You, I, you used me for creation of the book.
That makes sense.
So it's
Somewhere around here, I've got a version of the, I believe it's the Albano weight, but it's this big. It's
whoa,
it's like an inch and a half tall. They're just little tiny cards. You could throw them in your pocket.
absolutely workable. I mean, there's no reason at all that wouldn't work. Um, Again, you could literally even print out your own cards. Like I tell some people that if they can, if they can create their own deck, that would make it even more powerful. But then again, the subjectivity of magic will always be there.
Did I ever tell you how I got my first tarot deck?
Tell me.
Oh my God. We didn't have a library in our town. We lived way the hell out in the middle of nothing. And so every couple weeks, mom would be doing her errands on the weekends, and we would go over to the big city, which had an actual public library. And that's where I discovered my first book on tarot.
Hmm.
So I didn't have the money to get a tarot deck, and had no idea where to get one if I was gonna. So they had at the library, they had the little box with all the sheets of paper that you could write down the numbers, the Dewey Decimal numbers of the books you're looking for. So I just grabbed a handful of those, and I'm sitting over there behind the bookshelves, like tracing these out of the book, literally hand tracing these cards out of the book on this paper, which took forever. It took me months to finally get an entire deck of 70. But I got to tell you, that shit was powerful because
Yeah,
I'd been on like multiple missions to get this deck.
there's a lot of
I
will
did
behind it.
I did the trumps first so I could read the trumps, but the major arcana.
As they call it.
Yeah,
You'd be surprised. Like even Marcus Katz was telling us about his first deck. He had to photocopy it, and he still has it up to now. You see these old school decks that you have at the beginning. They're like Mr. T and his shoes. They used to ask Mr. T, "Why do you wear these beat up shoes?" And he said, "Because I never want to forget where I came from." Like me, I remember my first deck. How I got it was at the Psychic Eye bookstore in early '97. That they were doing some sort of fair, right? Like they had people like a psychic fair or something reading palms and stuff in the Mountain View branch. And I used to go there, but when you're 14 years old, you don't really have any money. You know what I mean? So that's
yeah.
like the midland between 16 where you can drive and 13 where the parents will give you cash. I had shit to me. So I went in there, I'd go in there, look at books until they'd kick me out. Then one day I was there just looking around. Yes, the Psychic Eye. I'm sure they still have one, Maite, in in Los Angeles. Anyhow, I went in there, and then I saw this guy. He was tall, menacing guy, and he had like puffy but curly white hair. And I say, "Sir, are those the tarot cards?" And he looked at me and he was like, "Don't you mean tarot?" And I said, "Oh, okay, yeah, tarot cards. Yeah, are those the tarot cards?" And he said, "Well, yes. Why do you ask?" And I asked him. I was a kid. You know, when you're a kid, you ask anything. Well, could you teach me how to do that? He gave me a funny look. He reached under the table. He handed me a deck and handed it to me. I was like, "Whoa, but I don't have any money." He said, "It's for you. You can have it." Then I was like, "Wow, okay, now it's like a very Obi-Wan Kenobi moment, right? So now what
Hmm.
do I do?" And he was like, "That's your journey. Excuse me, I have to read for someone." And I slowly
Nice.
stepped out of there before the guy at the teller would notice I had a deck in hand and say, "Hey, you got to pay for that." But it was the ugliest fucking deck on the planet. I don't want to say which one it was because the owners might fucking, it's ugly. I looked at it online. I could get another copy, but I'm like, I never liked it to begin with. So, but
Yeah.
it served its purpose, and I'll never forget. That's where I started, and it became part of me forever. Started a huge journey. It started with the readings. It was the only thing I brought with me when I moved to the Philippines. Believe it or not, I actually
Well,
left
did you
behind
say
the
your
baby that he gave me.
they say your first deck is supposed to be a gift, that you're not supposed to buy your first one?
Yeah, that's yeah. One of the old wives' tales about the cards is that you should be gifted your first one, and it's an ideal, but in this day and age, kind of unlikely. But
I
one thing I want
pirated
to
my first one, so I can't really complain.
it was a gift. It was the gift of effort you put into it. Don't you think?
Yeah, there's that. Oh, yeah, boy, I remember the psychic guy. That place was it was really something. I
Nice
mean,
to
I
know.
was working at Ancient Ways, and then I got to go over and see the psychic guy, and you're like, wow, this place is huge. This place is very shiny. But it was, I don't know, it always seemed to be lacking something.
I don't know who
Um,
told me. Was it you who told me it, or somebody else in the early '90s that it was ran not by an occultist? It was ran by a businessman who said a businessman needs to run this business.
yeah, yeah, I think that was the difference. Um, I remember the one of my first when I was the first occult store I'd ever been to
Mhm.
was oh god, what was it? It was something. It was Dolphin something. It was up in Erie, Pennsylvania, and it
Mhm.
was. I was told it was an occult bookstore. I get in there and I didn't know any different.
Mhm.
It was Dolphin Dreams. That was the name of it. It was this very, very fluffy new age crystals and rainbows and all of, and I'm walking through and I'm like suitably impressed because it's like, wow, I've never seen anything like this. This is everything here is for magic. And
Yeah.
then the second one I ever got to go see was Magical Child up in New York
Oh, New
City.
York. Always wanted to go to that one.
Oh my God. We're walking around. We're lost in Manhattan because we're just, it's all one way streets,
Mhm.
750,000 one way streets. So we're going through and we finally, and I'm like, I look over and I see this big heavy door and you can feel the evil oozing out. It's just like, oh yeah, this is the place. This is, and the whole feel was different. The crunchiness in the air, it like was around the entire block. And you go inside and you're like, my God, I can smell the books and the 20-foot ceilings and the bookshelves that go way up and the tall ladders, and then there's the flags and banners of the different magical organizations. And I walked in, I was like, no, this is a magic store.
Yeah,
This is what I was looking for the first time.
totally.
And I was blown. I got a copy of Gems from the Equinox
Oh,
there,
cool.
and I still have it. I still have it. I
Isn't
got
that
it.
where they originally published the first Necronomicon?
Yes, actually, I got my copy of Gems straight from Horrible Herman himself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was where they Wasserman and Herman Slater and all those went ahead and put together the Simon Necronomicon.
That's the thing that brought you and me together, believe it or not. And one
You
thing I
know,
like nowadays, this is one thing I deserve. The people tend to miss out on this, that nowadays, more and more, because of some of amazing tarot decks out there, tarot is now being used as more of a tool of evocation, that you can actually now summon spirits using the tarot. That I actually have a Goetia tarot, a beautiful Goetia tarot that I used when I summoned Belial for this show. And it's
Something I always wanted to do was do a tarot of just sigil gates,
mhm.
so that you could use it for reading. But if you needed more information, you could just use that as a gate to go through and get like the direct information on the other side.
Believe it or not, Lon's deck does that very well. The Tarot of
What's
Ceremonial
that?
Magic, Lon, his deck, the Tarot of Ceremonial Magic, each card has
Yeah.
a Goetic sigil to it. So it really all depends on what you need. But like you said, if he was stuck on a desert island, he'd need that. He'd want that book for his deck because that has everything you need in it. And I think he's just taken Tarot Magic to the next level. The only unfortunate thing I say about it is it's not for the non-fluent. If you give that to somebody starting and he's going to look at it, he's just going to throw it aside. But the advantage of my course, Tarot 78, and my book is anyone can do it. I try to make it as undifficult as possible. And, the more you get into magic, the less about spells, it begins to be. You know that as well as I do.
Well, it stacks. If you look at something like, you're like, okay, I've got first gear, and then you look at lawn books. They're like, your lawn's book is like, okay, this is fifth gear. This is for when you're already on the Autobahn.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing 100 miles an hour. You'd like to do 200. Now you need the next higher gear.
True.
That's why, like, with Acolyte is definitely, it's almost like a parking gear. It's just to get you from stop to go, and then each one is going to stack on top of that. Now you could dump in later, but you would be missing out on a lot of it. So there's it's good to have the stuff that's for the high gear things, but not everybody's going to be up there.
Mm-hmm.
So you do need things like Tarot 78 spells for 78 days, because it is, even if someone has no interest in reading tarot cards, this is a whole spell book you can just carry in your pocket.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even have to fold out like what's that, the Nicolas Cage movie where he had the spell book that was this big, but then it folded out to be like a foot thick. But yeah, so that was, when you go through, I think I mentioned that last time. What I like is that you don't have to memorize the tarot to be able to use the book, because it's another amazing piece of art on this. But you go through as you're reading it. It teaches you not just like, say, okay, all the sevens do this, or all the wands do this. It teaches you the specifics of that card, so you're learning one card every day. And then by the end, you're familiar with the whole thing.
Exactly. And one thing I aimed to do with that book when I wrote it was I wanted to give people these aha moments, like, whoa, I never thought you could do that. Of course you can. Now, some people might go ahead and hit me with the UPG card saying, oh, you're just doing unverified personal gnosis. Yeah, maybe, or maybe not. It all started somewhere, but I'm just sharing with you some results that I got. Like, for example, there's one card there that I call, what is it called? That actually wasn't even my own spell. I got it from Dion Fortune, but it worked so well. It's about getting support. And it's something that she shared in her psychic self-defense that I did say it came from Dion Fortune, and this is how you do it. And you visualize it, and it's going to help you get called the occult police. You know what I mean? I was very clear in that book that I did not create this technique, but since it worked, I am sharing it with you. I'm crediting Dion Fortune for doing this. Never said it's mine. Others of them I personally created. Like there's one there that I remember I did in my youth, was called the Wrath of Ares. And holy shit, very powerful stuff. Like if you know you're going to go behind the barn with someone tomorrow, you're going to want to have this in your pocket, because when you do this spell, it's no longer about negotiating and can we be friends. It's foot to ass already. And sometimes you need that energy. I tell people time and time again, you can do the book day by day, or you can just randomly open a book and say, hey, I'd like to give this a try. There's no rules with it. I want it to be as lax as possible for people.
Is there any? I noticed that the cards are not in order. Is there any reason that they're in this order, or was this just the order they came off your deck?
Well, that's a good question you asked that, because I thought at first maybe I'll do them in order from 0 to 22. But I figured that mass populace would not appreciate it after the major arcana cards. Or people would get kind of, how do I say, bored if they know, oh, well, tomorrow we're going to do the Five of Swords, and I don't want to do that. So in that format, that's actually how I'm going to present the program when we do it online, where we're going to follow that book, because I want to kind of jumble it up a bit. I want to know, it's like, you don't know what's next. Because if we just did sword, 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 it's a lot of problematic energy for 14 fucking days. You know what I mean?
There is that.
We did the 10 of Swords today. Now we're doing the 2 of Cups tomorrow. Whoa. And again, I really give credit to Jack Grail for this. The way he, the idea, how he packaged his peanut butter is how I'm trying to package my jelly. I mean, his course superior, the PGM, because he's a scholar, a gentleman, an educator, bar none. But I said this kind of approach could be done for something like the tarot. And, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm showing people that you could take this course, you could pick my brain for it, you could read the book, and you could see, like, you could even use it as a tool of divination. Like example right now, you have a problem with your love life. Okay, let's say Wade has a problem for his love life. Well, there's 78 cards in this deck. What solution to your love life? And says, holy shit, the Knight of Wands, the Fanaticizer. Day 21.
Let's see. We have, I just opened the book at random. How to fix Wade's love life.
The devil. Look at shadow work. So you'd be surprised that this book not only can give you like a read on it, it can also give you potential solutions like the Fool, second chances. Okay, well, what if your ex-wife comes back and you might want to go down that direction? Some people do. You know what I mean? So ultimately, this is a multifaceted book that not only kind of gently introduces you to the tarot, but it also introduces you on how else you can use the tarot. Because people get stuck on the idea that the tarot is only for fortune telling or card reading. Wrong. That's like saying that my Legion laptop is only good for gaming. No, I actually wrote my book on this laptop. We're doing the show on this laptop. You see what I mean? So I wanted to make it very four-dimensional if possible. I wanted people to say, holy shit, I did not think you could do that. Damn.
I've always used, you can reverse any system of divination.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I've always taught my students when they get to that level. Was you could take say, and you would use your reading deck for this. That you would go through and you would find the cards and you would lay them out as if you had done a reading that predicted the outcome that you've already decided you want.
Yeah, I like that.
So
reading technique.
You would lay them out and you would just leave them on your altar like that, and that's kind of, the whole thing becomes kind of a talisman.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one that you would use your reading cards for, because it's already set up to go that direction.
Mm-hmm.
But you can do that with any system of divination. And this is a whole different flavor, because it's almost like each card individually just becomes a spell that you can huck at somebody.
And, I knew that this was doing something great because I have a friend of mine. She's a wine connoisseur. She's an intuitive, but she's not really deep into the occult shit. You know what I mean? The stuff that we do. And she just mentioned today, just like, I got to say, I love Rob's book. And knowing that it got through to her, God bless her soul, Rose. I hope she finds a wonderful man soon. Meant a lot to me, because it means that it's getting through beyond just people like us. Because let's be honest, man, like, this is helpful. This is like a Swiss Army knife of the tarot. But if we had other problems, you and I are more likely to go to the grimoires or go to your cauldron and make an offering to one of your spirits. But the fact that these things are now available, it just kind of opens doors. It makes me wonder, like, what else could we be doing? So I'm hoping that the book and the course actually takes off, because in openness and vulnerability, I'm going to share with everybody on the show. The reason that I'm really promulgating this is I actually intend to release a deck next year. That's really the goal. I have a deck that I'm creating that is not going to just be 78 cards. It's going to be 78, how do I say, modifiable cards. So if you don't like this version of the Fool, you can use a different version of the Fool. You can customize the deck. You see what I mean? Like the Lovers, 3 versions of the Lovers. I have 2 guys, 2 girls, and a guy and a girl. It's up to you. You know what I mean? Because everybody deserves love. So ultimately speaking, that's the goal of why I've been doing a lot of this advocacy, so that hopefully by next TarotCon 2024, the deck will be ready to be sold and printed.
That sounds great. Yeah, I like it. And yeah, I've always liked that they have that there's like when Crowley did multiple versions of the Magician for his deck. But the because honestly, I've never found a tarot deck that really where I liked every single card.
Mm-hmm.
It was always like, oh, this is it. And some of them you can tell were just art projects where they didn't really put a whole lot of magical thought into what they're doing with it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's always been, you go through and you've got your deck and you're like, oh, this is all great, just I hate this one. Yeah. This one's, and for a while there I was using I had, I think, like 5 or 6 different decks that I would just put different cards in.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're using like the cards from several different decks because there's some of them that you just can't handle the card on one.
And believe it or not, that actually happened in recent days, that they actually created a lovely deck called the Alleyman's Tarot. And it's like 100+ cards, but there's so many different versions of each card in that deck. It's freaking magnificent. It's like, it's a real steal to put your hands on it. So like, if you don't know what deck to bring, you can always just bring the Alleyman's with you, and that's just going to cover it for you.
And you read them all at once. Yeah. Well, we've got, the 5 of Pentacles is out here 6 different times in this reading, so it must be trying to tell you something.
Exactly. And that's another thing I tell people, and we discussed this in our advanced tarot class, is that you gotta respect the consciousness behind the tarot. It's like this: if I only introduced Wade as a soldier or a veteran or an ex-military, we're missing out on other aspects of Wade that could exist. You see what I mean? And I think the tarot is already getting enough attention for the whole tarot reading, the divination, but it's kind of saying also like, I want to be known for other things. I also want other recognition, and that's part of why I'm doing this for this course and for this program and for the book, because I want people to think that like, hey, you know what? I met the woman of my dreams because of the tarot, or you know what? I broke out of a depressive spell because of the tarot. It's very multifaceted.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that when you find diversity in your tools, you'll also find diversity in yourself.
Very true.
Because if you're looking through and you're saying, okay, well, I've always been a talented reader, I've never been a talented caster, and here is something that I take this book, and now just every day, like, okay, well, I'm doing day 24. True Will Finder. Fun. Again, cool artwork. But so you're doing something, you're saying, well, okay, this is the spell for this day. What do I even want to do this on? Mm-hmm. Or, you get to know Beyond the Loop. And so you're looking at some of these different spells, but maybe you don't have something that you want to do that on. So you have to sit and think about something like, oh, what's my possible target on this? What is my what is my objective? Where am I going to use this spell? And it kind of makes you come up with more things about yourself, because you say, well, okay, I need to think of a thing that I want to do this on. Because that was something that, and it really makes you kind of branch out into and explore the possibilities in your own life. Because I remember at Ancient Ways, we would have people coming in all the time with the most ridiculous problems.
Yeah.
I mean, some of these things were stuff you'd never even think of. And they're in there for 20, 30 minutes, and you have that amount of time to solve their problems with magic. So you're solving, hundreds of different problems every week. And so you're having to get really creative with it. And, you're bringing someone in. One of the ones that really sticks out for me is a mother that wanted her son was in jail, and she didn't want him released from jail. She wanted him moved from Max to a lower level security so she could visit him.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, that's not too much to ask. Let's get to work. And we got it. You know, she came back later and she was all happy and bubbly because she'd just been to see her boy. She wasn't trying to get him out. She knew he did it.
Yeah.
But she just wanted to see her boy. And I thought, it's interesting because it's not like the Tower. You're not breaking him out of prison. But it's you have to dial it in. You have to finesse the things. But the average person is never going to run into that many different magical conundrums in a week.
Exactly.
They're not going to say, like, I've got all these things that I have to solve, but here you've got the tools to do it. All you got to do is think of something to do it on.
Yeah. Also, at the same time, there's that old saying in the military, better to have it and not need it, needed to not have it, right? Like, you buy a gun, not because you want to go out and shoot someone today. You buy a gun because just in case you need to, you're prepared. Chance favors the prepared mind.
Yeah, because maybe one day in 10,000, you'll need that gun.
Exactly.
But on that day, you need that gun.
Exactly. And you have it ready versus, holy shit, it's not there.
And no one's going to tell you when that day happens. So you have it with you. You know, I like to tell people that my job is 8 hours of waiting for something to happen and 10 minutes of making it stop.
Very true. It's like that's another thing about the book. Some people have asked me, but what if I don't agree with the way you did the spell? Great. Do it your way. Do it your way. If you think this spell is, I'm not selling it, then fine. You know what I mean? Example, I'm a Catholic. People don't believe that. I'm a Catholic. I've read Islamic text. I've read Buddhist text. I've read Hindu texts. And they say things there that I don't agree with. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just, it's not my flavor. You know, good example. It's like, for those in Islam, they don't eat pork. Sorry, I love my bacon. Simple as that. I'm not going to force them to eat bacon. I'm not going to eat bacon in front of them as an insult, but I'm not going to stop myself from eating bacon. You see what I mean? So it's just all about knowing what works for you.
But also, if you the whole thing with religious food restrictions, if you actually sit down and put some thought into it as to why it happened, most of the time, like the whole thing with shellfish.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in a warm climate, you're pulling shellfish in, down at the beach, but you never know when red tide's going to happen because they didn't even know what that was.
Exactly.
So sometimes it would kill you, sometimes it wouldn't. So it's better just to not do it. But back then, they wouldn't necessarily understand about, algae blooms and bacteria. Same thing with like hookworm, in pigs. They wouldn't know what trichinosis is. They just know that, sometimes people die from this. But it's become inflated into this whole big thing where now it has a spiritual aspect to it. Food doesn't make you unclean. I mean, Jesus even said, what goes into your mouth doesn't make you unclean. It's what comes out of your mouth that makes you unclean.
Amen to that.
So, if you take it and you apply conscious thought to it, a little bit of conscious analysis, I would never be able to deal with Jewish food restrictions. But honestly, if I had to pick any one of the big three religions, if someone said, look, these are your choices, you got to pick, I would have to be Jewish because they seem to be having the most fun with it.
Well, ultimately, it's what works for you, and I respect all beliefs. They may not be mine, but, I will show respect to it. So, like, if I was with Hindu and he had to be vegetarian, he didn't believe in eating animals, hey, I respect that. You know what I mean? I might even opt not to have meat in front of him out of respect to him. But if he starts following me home saying, do you have any beef in your fridge? I'm like, hey, man, you're kind of crossing the line there. And, what I wanted to share about this book is after, I made this book in record time. Did you know that?
Really?
My core team in Mysterium kind of said, Rob, I think TarotCon is the best place to launch this book. Is there any way you could have this done beforehand? I was like, TarotCon's 3 weeks away. And holy crap, man, it felt like a chest burster from Alien coming out of me because it's like I was squeezing it out of me. It's like, I'd like for like a week and a half in which I did it was like maybe 12 days. I would sit down, I would do one spell, and then I just lie down because it's just like drained me. And then I'd load up on caffeine and I would do it again. And it was just like by the end of the book, I was just like, holy shit, it was just so exhausting. But you know, when you're being used as a tool to get out a message in this world, you know, you really can't say no. You really can't say no. Like,
You know, nothing motivates you like a deadline.
very true. Very, very true. Have you seen any spells in there that you're actually considering doing?
Oh, well, I'm going to mess with all of them, but honestly, the one that really kind of stuck out at me was the world. It's
Okay.
not coming up right now, but I like that one. I like that one a lot. But I think I might just go through and do them in order because then, like I was saying before, then I have to find a target for each one.
Mm-hmm.
And even if it's something that I don't necessarily need, hadn't thought about wanting, it would be like, oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick a target, make it happen. Because then I will have gone through and had experience with all of them. Plus, I would be learning the tarot. So yeah, there's actually been a few of them that I'm looking through and like, ooh, I want to do this. Tyrant Binder. You know,
Especially
I
with those
love the
people that ask
I love the
for-
D&D names on these.
You know,
You
that
know?
also, okay, again, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Full credit to the beloved Jack Grail because I'm part of his PGM, 50 Rights for 50 Nights. And
Mhm.
every week you could see the name, the subtitle of each spell from the PGM. So you'd see, like, you know, this, like, the Bathe of Isis or the Call of the Serpent-Faced God. I'm like, this is some badass shit. And one thing I like to tell people about the program and, of course, about the book is it's usually not enough just to do it once. Think of this book kind of like a book of 78 different martial arts technique. And remember the words of Bruce Lee, where I don't fear the man who knows 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who's practiced one kick 10,000 times. So even if you just take one of these spells, but you brute force it and you just make it yours, damn, man, damn. Like you could literally just take the star spell, the wish granter, and next thing you know, you got everything covered because you've just invested so much gnosis into it.
You know, one of my early invented spells was actually using a wishbone from a turkey.
Whoa.
And what you do was you put a little tag on both sides of it, and on the one you'd write the wish that you wanted, and on the other side you'd write what you're willing to risk.
Mm-hmm.
And whichever side breaks with the center on it is what happens. And it's actually kind of terrifying because you're like, okay, you know, what new car versus break leg.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen here? You know, am I going to get a grievous injury? But I did stuff like that in my youth, and it works because of the emotional investment of what you're willing to risk for it.
I hope
yeah.
you'd indulge me. I'd actually like to do some sharing from the book with the audience because we are going to be posting this. And some of the spells in here are actually stackable. Did you know that?
Really?
That, like, if I'm not mistaken, one of my favorite spells in here is the Seven of Cups spell. If I'm not mistaken, where
I just opened to the Seven of Cups.
Yeah, so it's a Seven of Cups. Basically, what we call the culling of the seven. And what happens here is, like, imagine your life, right? Your life is divided into so many different aspects, right? It's divided as a father, as a security guard, as a mage, as a writer. So basically, this is dividing your energy based upon the number of important things in your life. Now, what if for just a small amount of time, you could bring back all of that energy and give 100% of your energy and your being and your focus into this one task for like a 1 hour period? So imagine if you did this first, the culling of the seven, to bring all of your energy from being a father, being a security guard into one thing, Wade the Mage. For the next 45 minutes, I am Wade the Mage. And then you picked one spell out of here. That's just like a blast of will.
Huh. So yeah, so you're basically buffing one characteristic to get the maximum result from it. That's really
Exactly. Or like there's
that
another
one
one
is
here.
now bookmarked.
There's another spell here that I call the Mirror of Spite. Keep forgetting which one it is. It's from the Five of Swords. And spite is a very powerful energy because that's the energy of when you feel somebody thinks that you can't do something. They underestimate you. They try to shut you down. Now imagine if you took that energy and before doing that, you did the Wrath of Ares, which is the spell where you take in the attributes of the archetypal energy of the warrior king, the warrior conqueror, and then you blast it with the Mirror of Spite. Dude, you might melt somebody.
You know,
I mean,
this might be something for a second edition. Is putting something in each one. Like this also stacks well with, number 44. This stacks well with this other one. If you do, or even if you just did a companion document,
that's
like an expansion where you could say, okay, now that you know how to use these, now that you have like the 78 basics, let's look at how you can do all the combinations of them.
Well, first and foremost, that's going to be discussed in the course. For those who have the trust to enroll with me in the course, I will share to you which ones I personally use. All right. Like how to mix and match these. Number 2, down the line, I'm not doing it right now. I'm going to be releasing a book on tarot rituals, ritual magic using the tarot deck. I don't know if I could squeeze it into 78 rituals for 78 reasons. And I'm not talking spells, rituals.
Right.
Okay? Rituals. But that's going to take a lot of intellectualizing and maybe even collaborating with people because you need to know spirits and correspondences. And it's going to be very chewy, as you like to call it. But the thing about it is, all of that, do not take this book as something just a page for page. Because if you're smart, you can say, holy shit, I can stack this spell with this spell and get this effect. You see what I mean?
Yeah. That's a really good application of all of these. I mean, you could end up like chaining some of these where you have, you're going to do this one and then this one, and then your final. This is the one you wanted to do the whole time, but you've chained it to these other 3 effects first.
Yeah, you could make a huge daisy chain effect, and as a result of that, God only knows what can happen. And I mean, I like to say that TarotCon was a result of all this, of course, with support of the big man here, Belial. You remember when I told you that I'd send you a copy of this book? It's because I said, if not for you, I wouldn't have been alive to write it. And one of the things I like to say is that, like, your magic is not just one direction. You know what I mean? Like the things you do then and now and in the future will cause a perfect storm that's just going to completely alter your life. Like going back to the death card there, an energy that I've picked up was that this is the next year, 2024. I tell people, they ask me what's 2024 going to look like. I call it the necromancer's year. Why is it the necromancer's year? Because the dead will walk. You will actually not just be able to get back what you thought you lost. You will even be able to, in its own way, turn back time. Let's say something happened years ago, you never healed from it. Now you'll be able to get your energy back from there. And I'm really like, damn, what is this going to be for us, man? What are we going to unlock in 2024? Because geez, as long as we're still alive, the shit we can do.
Oh, not just what's going to happen with us, what's happening with the world. I don't know how familiar you are with American politics, but next year is going to be a colossal. Everything is going to change one way or the other. It's just everything is going to explode. It's crazy. And then throwing magic in on top of this, the world's never going to be the same. And honestly, with as much of a shit show as the world is right now, I'm fine with it not being the same.
Exactly. And even like the High Priestess card there, people who don't know it, I gave homage to Hecate with that card. in that spell in the book. It's really about like a very minuscule drop in the pond of how to make a tiny tribute to Hecate. I'm no Jack Grail when it comes to that, but after all that she's done for me as well, I mean, like I know Maite here, one of our viewers, because of Hecate. I mean, Jack guested on our program because of Hecate. Third G is in my vocabulary because of Hecate, and only to find out that her and Anubis were really tight buddies. And I just wanted to throw her in on that. Like, of course, if you see the book, there's a lot of Anubis iconography there. I didn't think I needed to give him his own spell. Like, if you look on the front and the back, there's an Anubis sigil there. I mean, the brand is on him. But I also use this book as really as a personal tribute, a real personal tribute to the deities and the energies that have helped me get through the past couple of years.
Yeah. And I remember I've had people try to they're trying to explain the whole thing like, well, you can't conflate the Greek gods with the Egyptian gods. It's two different cultures, and I'm like, they're about 30 miles apart.
True.
If you look at a map, they're like 30 miles apart, which is way. I mean, people traveled hundreds of miles, especially in the Mediterranean. There was traders all over the place. Yeah, they would have all had. I mean, they had Greek temples in Egypt.
Well, think of it like this. I think, like, in reality, if we were all in the same city, if somebody wanted to talk third G, they'd go to Jack. If they wanted to talk to Anubis, they'd go to me. And if they wanted to talk about Palo Mayombe, they'd go to you. But we all know each other. We're all buddies. We all drink beer in the same bar. So I don't think it's any, how do I say, disrespect or anything like that. Or like, no, Rob and Wade are one and the same. Oh my God, we're both not that good looking. But you can have relationships with each of them, because one thing I've also observed about these older gods, especially with helping people discover their patron gods, is that the old gods aren't actually really jealous. You know, it's really only the Abrahamic god that's really jealous. Like, Hecate don't give a shit that I work with Anubis. It's just like, oh, you want to have beer with Anubis? Go ahead. You know what I mean? You gave me an offering.
They'll kind of work together.
Yeah.
It's It's moving parts of the same machine. Ebony used to tell me a story that something he had read. I believe it was, I want to say Aristotle, and I'm not sure if that's right. He was in Egypt, and he's going down the street with all the temples, and he's visiting the different temples, and he's in the he's in the temple of Isis, and the priest is telling, well, you know, the whole universe comes from the womb of Isis. And he's like, wait a minute, across the street they were telling me that the universe comes from the phallus of Ra. And he said, across the street it did come from the phallus of Ra. Because if you look at it in the bigger picture, and you know how babies are made,
yeah,
you can kind of see how the whole thing works together. But across the street, they have a completely different business going on.
True. Not only that,
and it's not in conflict. It all works together.
Not at all. Like, for example, let's say it like this. Let's pull out 4 random people, okay, from the show. You, me, Shea, and Jack. We're all in the bar, but we're not sitting together. You're reading something. I'm doing a tarot reading. Jack is probably having a whiskey, and Shea is probably having a beer, right? We're respecting each other's own personal space, but we know each other. But if somebody goes in there and says, hey, wait, I want to be your friend. Hey, great. Meet Rob. Meet Shea. Meet Jack. These are my guys. You see what I mean? So, like, even when you get one god, when you work with one god, in most cases, you're not just getting one. You're kind of getting the clan or the clique that they belong to. Like with Anubis, who everybody knows is my patron. Anubis is conflated with, or not conflated, but very much connected to Selene, to Hecate, to Isis, to Artemis. These are all gods that are like, yeah, we know of Anubis. You know, we've come across him more than once. And we've done business with him. You see what I mean? So I tell people when it comes to dealing with deities, to don't be so one-dimensional, because they don't really give a damn. Again, it's really only the Abrahamic God that's like, no, I am the only God. And quite frankly, I don't even think that it was him who said that. I think it was more of his clergymen, because they were afraid of losing control.
Probably, yeah. I mean, if you look at how the Bible was kind of compiled from all the different stories going around, yeah, it was all about consolidating political power.
Very true. Very, very true. Do you have any other questions about the book that we can answer for the crowds?
Honestly, I'm good. Looking forward to the course.
Yeah, that opens end of January. So for people who are interested, send me a DM on Rob Rubin Readings on Facebook or straight to here on Magic.tv. It's 40 weeks long, 40, because you get 2 spells a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Okay.
So on a Wednesday, you'll get an email with a video of the spell with a handout, and then go ahead and do it, read it. And then on Saturday, I think Saturday, Wednesday, or Sunday, one of the two, you get another one. And then every 2 weeks, we have Zoom calls. It has its own private Facebook group where we can discuss, share, and, pick each other's brains. How did it work? It's all about community building, and 40 weeks long. So that gives you just enough time for 79 lessons and 1 welcome lesson.
Now, if someone comes in late, are they all going to be archived on the site?
No, the cohort starts at one time. So once a cohort starts, the door closes. And then after the 20th lesson, after the 20th week, we will open a new cohort.
Okay. All right. If somebody wanted to order this today, where would they be able to get it?
They can go to my fan page, Rob Rubin Readings, on Facebook. Let me just type it in at Rob Rubin Readings. I'm just adding this here. www.facebook.com/Rob. Send me a DM. Right now, we have only 30 left. I did an initial run of 100 copies, and only 30 are left. So they went like lightning, and I don't think those are going to last. Most likely, probably in the next month or 2, we're going to make another run of it. We can ship in the Philippines easily. Please be patient if you want to ship it anywhere else within the world, because it is balls to ship things from here to the Philippines to like I want to ship one. I definitely want to ship one to Lon. I want to ship one to Denny. I had a friend going to the States and said, I can take 5. That's it. I'm not gonna take more than that. I couldn't send a whole box with her. So those who already pre-ordered in the States got theirs. Hopefully Maite gets hers soon. But yeah, we're gonna be probably doing another shipment to some in the States and anywhere around Europe soon enough. So hopefully this takes off, because this is gonna be our pioneer project for 2024.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for the book. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and perspective on it.
And thank you for the friendship.
Great stuff.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Enjoy your day.